Hey, what's up everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing my bi-monthly IBF Champions Report, as we are going to talk about the International Boxing Federation's Champions Report, where we will discuss all champions and title belts from 122 pounds all the way to heavyweight in the IBF division. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I try to build my channel up here. Excuse me one second. So to the IBF and everything going on, we start in the 122 pound super bantamweight division, and that is the reigning and unified champion. There is Marlon Tapales. He holds the IBF and the WBA titles. Tapales looks like he's got it all sewn up for an undisputed title clash with the monster Naoya Inoue, who defeated Stephen Fulton Jr. in July to capture the WBC and the WBO titles. Just prior to that, the WBA came down and approved for Tapales to be able to compete for undisputed. They cleared the path for that, and these two guys seem to be working together and gonna have this thing hammered out and worked out for an undisputed title clash that I believe is gonna take place in November or December. So hopefully by the next Champions Report we have a finalized date for Tapales and Inoue for the undisputed title at 122. 126, the reigning champion there is Luis Alberto Lopez. Lopez is set to return for a second time this year when he takes on Joet Gonzalez on September 15th, a Friday night on ESPN. Those two are gonna main event, and it should be an all-out Mexican war slugfest right there, as Lopez tries to continue to prove why he believes he's the best guy in the division when he takes on the always game Joet Gonzalez, who's getting a third crack at a world title here. I think it's going to be a banger on that Friday night. I'm definitely going to tune in to watch it. I'm picking Lopez to win the fight by a decision, but I do think Gonzalez is a live underdog, and it could be a very, very competitive and good fight. So make sure you tune in September 15th on ESPN. 130, super featherweight. The reigning and undefeated champion there is two-time champ Joe Cordina of the United Kingdom. Well, Cordina, you know, at last check was supposed to have a fight by the end of September, but nothing has come to fruition from that. All I've heard is that Cordina is interested in fighting the winner of Josh Warrington and Lee Wood, who are competing in October for the WBA featherweight title, but I haven't heard what Cordina is planning on doing next. He hasn't fought since his April victory, where he regained the IBF title with a hard-fought split decision over Shavkat Rakhimov, where he also scored a knockdown. Haven't heard anything when he's going to be returning and against who. I know the original name that was being floated was Zelfa Barrett, the former world title challenger, but we've heard nothing since then. Not sure what's going on. I'm thinking that we will definitely hear something by the next Champions Report on what he's going to do, but I just hope he's going to have a fight, period, before the end of the year, because it hasn't been looking too good the last couple months. Haven't really heard much. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully by the next Champions Report at the end of October, we have a finalized fight for Cordina and what he's going to do next. 135 lightweight, the reigning undefeated IBF and undisputed champion is Devin Haney, who holds all 4 belts in the lightweight division right now. Haney looks like he's moving up to 140 to challenge for the WBC 140-pound title. We don't yet know what that means for all the other belts, you know, at lightweight. We know the WBC is upgrading him to champion emeritus to where he can move back down, and they're allowing Shakur Stevenson to fight for their vacant title. But none of the other governing bodies, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO, have not come down with a decision on what they're going to do. What I think is going to happen is I think Haney is going to be allowed to move up and fight, and then all the governing bodies are going to ask him what he's going to do next. What he's going to do, who he's going to fight, which division he's going to fight in. And if he decides to stay at 140 for another fight, then that belt, the IBF title, will go vacant, and the top contenders will compete for it, which the #1 contender still is Lemos, I believe. So we'll see what happens. I don't believe, as of now, I'm leaning towards we might not see an IBF title fight until close to the end of the year, and that's if Haney gets stripped of the title. So we'll keep you posted. Hopefully we hear something by the next Champions Report on what direction the 135-pound title's going in. 140, the champion there is Subriel Matias, who at last check was interested in a showdown with former champ Sergey Lipinets, but now it looks like he has to fight his mandatory Urshigev next. That fight has already went to a purse bid. I believe they have to get that fight done within 90 days. I think it was their purse bid was about a week ago, and they said they have to get that fight done within the next 90 days. So that's 3 months from the end of August, pretty much. So that fight should be announced with a date and all that stuff by the next Champions Report at the very minimum. That fight could happen prior to that, and if it does, I got Matias winning by knockout. But if it doesn't, we should at least have that fight signed and ready to go before the next Champions Report at the end of October. Next up is 147 welterweight. The reigning undefeated and undisputed welterweight champion of the world is Terrence Bud Crawford. He captured the IBF, WBA, and WBC welterweight titles in July when he unified all 4 belts with a dominating 9th round TKO victory over Errol Spence, who had actually been the IBF's champion since 2017. So he stopped a 6-year run for Spence with a dominating 9th round TKO victory to become the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. Now, Crawford, it looks like yesterday, Errol Spence Jr. and his people let everybody know that he has exercised his automatic rematch clause, and these two guys are going to lock horns again. But for all intents and purposes, everybody believes that the rematch is going to take place at 154. If and when that happens, I believe Crawford is going to vacate his title, and then Jerome Boots Ennis is going to be upgraded to champion, and then Boots will decide on his first defense before the end of the year. But I think once Crawford does that, what I think a lot of people are waiting for, and this is just speculation, but I believe that Boots and Stanionis, the WBA regular champ, are awaiting Crawford's decision and if he's going to give up those belts. Because if he does, they both get upgraded to full champ, and then I think we could be seeing a title unification bout between Boots Ennis and Imantas Stanionis. If not, I think they both make mandatories and lock up their mandatories and victories to set up a unification showdown in early next year. So we'll see what happens regarding Crawford and Spence. Hopefully by the next Champions Report, if Crawford has not given up the belts already at 147, hopefully he's leaning one way or the other on what he's going to do with those belts, so we know the future of the IBF title and Boots Ennis, the interim champion, by the next Champions Report. Hopefully we find out something for the welterweight title. 154 super welterweight. The reigning and undisputed champion there is Jermell Charlo. Charlo, we know, is moving to, on September 30th, is moving to 168 to challenge for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world against Canelo Alvarez. Now, most people feel he's going to lose that fight. If he does he move back down to 154? Because if he doesn't, then the title goes vacant, and, you know, somebody is going to be competing for the vacant title before the end of the year. There is no interim champion right now at 154, so the belt would go vacant, and we're gonna see a vacant title fight before the end of the year. Now, Charlo could very easily, though, move back down to 154 and hold on to his belts. I believe the IBF would probably grant him the right to do that, but they will start saying, hey, you got to start making your mandatories. I personally feel Charlo is going to vacate any belts that are going to force him into a mandatory position, unless he really wants to hold on to one of the belts, shake off some rust from a loss, and fight somebody there. But it also depends on opponent selection. If he's gonna be after a loss, will he want to come back down and fight like a Tim Tszyu, or you know, if Crawford and Spence are fighting each other in a rematch, is he gonna want to wait around for the winner of that to set up a big fight there? So really up in the air, but my belief in my heart is that I don't feel that Charlo is going to be competing for the IBF Super Welterweight title the next time that title goes on the line. That's just my personal opinion. I feel like he's going to vacate or be stripped of that belt, and we'll see who competes for it next. Hopefully we have a clearer picture by the next Champions Report at the end of October. 160 middleweight. The newly crowned champion is Vicente Gualtieri, and he already has his next fight signed and ready to go. Gualtieri captured the vacant title with a somewhat controversial decision victory over Esquiva Falcao from Brazil. They competed for the belt that Triple G Gennady Golovkin gave up at the beginning of July. Gualtieri became your new champion, middleweight champ, and now has already signed on to attempt to unify belts, as he's going to try to add a second title to himself and control half of the middleweight division when he battles the undefeated WBO champion Janibek Alimkhanuly, or Kazakh style. They will compete October 14th to unify middleweight championships. I'm going with Janibek for sure. I think he's going to stop Gualtieri. But you know what? I also thought Falcao was going to beat Gualtieri, and Gualtieri got the victory there. So we'll see what happens. October 14th on ESPN, Gualtieri and Alimkhanuly will compete to unify middleweight belts and get control of half of the middleweight division. That's big. So we'll see what goes down there. Next, 168 super middleweight. The reigning IBF and undisputed super middleweight champion is Canelo Alvarez. Canelo is returning Saturday, September 30th on Showtime pay-per-view to defend his undisputed title against undisputed super welterweight champion from 154, Jermell Charlo, who's moving up in weight. Now, I like the matchup, but I really believe Canelo is going to dominate Charlo and stop him in the middle to later rounds and retain his super middleweight title. Hopefully, after that victory, and since the next Champions Report is at the end of October, excuse me, Canelo has an idea of what he wants to do following that. We know there's been interest in Terrence Bud Crawford, but now that Crawford and Spence are likely going to fight each other again before the end of the year or early next year, will that open the door for Canelo, you know, for if Spence were to beat Crawford, would that open the door for Canelo to fight the winner of that fight in May? It could possibly be that. So we'll see. But that's also presuming that Canelo's going to win. I don't like presuming those things, but I really believe that Canelo is going to defeat Charlo. I don't think he's going to have too much trouble doing it, and Canelo will stay your undisputed champion. Well, we'll have an update by the next Champions Report at the end of October. 175 light heavyweight is next, and the reigning undefeated unified champion there is Arthur Beterbiev. He has been your IBF light heavyweight champion since 2017. He currently is the longest reigning IBF champion right now, and he will be returning in January to defend his unified championship against WBC mandatory challenger and former super middleweight champion Callum Smith. They were supposed to fight in August, but an infection in the mouth of Beterbiev caused the fight to get postponed, and now they have re-signed the fight to take place in January on ESPN. So as we get closer to that, I'll give a prediction, but that is what Beterbiev is doing next. 200 cruiserweight. The reigning champion is Jai Opetaia, who signed on for his first defense finally. It's going to come 14 months after a 14-month delay after he captured the belt in July of last year when he upset Maris Bradis. He will take on undefeated but little known British fighter Jordan Thompson. And the caveat here is that Opetaia, with a victory, will face off against Maris Bradis in a rematch next. So really looking forward to that. Opetaia returning at the end of the month. It's going to be on DAZN. It's going to be on September 30th. It'll be from the United Kingdom, Thompson's home country. So Thompson has a chance to prove himself on his home turf. But I think Opetaia is going to dominate Thompson. I think he's going to shake off the rust. I think he'll get a late stoppage, but if not, I see a one-sided decision for Opetaia as he'll retain the title and push forward towards that rematch with Maris Bradis. And finally, the heavyweight champion is the undefeated IBF and unified heavyweight champ, Oleksandr Usyk. Usyk returned in August and made a mandatory defense of his unified title against his WBA regular champion, Danny Dubois of the United Kingdom. Outside of some controversy over a low blow in the 5th round, it was pretty much Usyk in control. No surprise here as he pretty much outworked Dubois and broke him down and stopped him in the 9th round to retain his unified title. Now, next up, Usyk wants Tyson Fury for sure for the undisputed title. But if that doesn't happen, next up would be Filip Hrgovic, who's next in line in the IBF's mandatory challenger. But Hrgovic could mess up unless the IBF puts their foot down and makes Hrgovic an interim champion. Hrgovic could mess up the undisputed title fight because he has come out and said he's not stepping aside. So we'll see what goes down. I'm looking forward to seeing this fight, in seeing what happens. But hopefully after Ngannou, the Ngannou and Tyson Fury fight in October, hopefully we get a clear direction. Hopefully by the next Champions Report, we have a little bit of something worked out for Fury and Usyk for the undisputed title. But we'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my IBF, the International Boxing Federation's Champions Report for the end of August, heading into September. I will return at the end of October, heading into November, with another Champions Report. Remember, I do them bi-monthly on all the governing bodies. So, title fights, remember, don't forget the title fights that are coming up. You have Jai Opetaia defending his cruiserweight title against Jordan Thompson on September 30th. You have Canelo defending his undisputed super middleweight title against undisputed super welterweight champion Jermell Charlo on September 30th on Showtime pay-per-view. You have Vicente Gualtieri attempting to unify belts on October 14th on ESPN when he battles undefeated WBO champion Janibek Alimkhanuly at middleweight. Then you have, what is it? No. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here on the other fights that are taking place. You have Luis Alberto Lopez on September 15th defending his IBF featherweight championship against the hard-hitting Joet Gonzalez. So you don't want to miss any of the action. Make sure you're checking out, paying attention to the news. But we got 4 title fights on the radar in the next 2 months for the IBF Championship. Check them out. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.